thanks, everybody. Good to see you all here today.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. So thanks for your interest in our session today about insights into the conflicting payments, risk and compliance landscape in the SME segment.
Okay, so we're just going to take through our agenda very briefly. So we're going to do some introductions just of who we are, but we're also going to get you involved as well. So there's a Slido just so you can tell us who you are in the audience. We're then going to look at what acquiring banks like Nexi's conflicting objectives and drivers actually are and why they exist. We'll look at two examples of how VikingCloud and Nexi have worked together to achieve balance and manage risk in relation to the introduction of new technologies. And then we'll be looking at an example of how we've worked together to create a better merchant experience. And then we've got another Slido for you, so phones at the ready. We're going to be asking you to tell us what you think in terms of how can we, as an industry, better serve the small merchant business community in particular, and perhaps the wider payments industry as well.
Yeah, that's the interactive part of our session. So stage diving will be at the end, so mind is not the fourth point we have got here. And we will wrap up our session and with takeaways. And start with our intro then. So Natasja, will you start?
Indeed. So yes, Natasja Bolton, I'm from VikingCloud. We are one of the world's largest QSA companies, but in the context of this session, we are the provider of Nexi's merchant compliance management portal. And I'm one of the qualified security assessors at VikingCloud, but primarily my role is to support our clients like Daniela with their questions on the payments industry, on the PCI DSS, and helping with any merchant questions. Daniela.
Yeah, so I'm Daniela Christoffel. I'm from Nexi. Nexi is a leading European paytech company. We have a wide portfolio of services in the industry. Today we will focus on our footprint in the merchant solutions, where we are an acquirer as well as service provider. I'm a compliance manager for PCI topics, mainly working with merchants and programs for merchants PCI compliance, as well as with the according requirements and programs from the card schemes. We work closely together with VikingCloud, as Natasja said already, with our solutions we offer to merchants. So we have merchant portals where they can do the self-assessment in a kind of guided and interactive tool, so not to mess about the actual SAQ documents or identifying by themselves what would be the applicable one. So our examples today also relate to these portals. Yeah, some of these challenges that we talk about have some impact on these portals as well. And yeah, I think we can go
We're
on with
ready
the next
to
slide.
open up the questions to you. So we're really interested to understand who you are in the audience in terms of what type of business do you represent. Maybe you're an acquirer as well, or a payment service provider, maybe a QSA, just to help us understand whether or not the objectives and drivers that we're talking about here and how they might conflict, maybe resonate with you, or maybe as a merchant it might be interesting to understand why there are conflicts and why the acquirers ask you to do certain things. Ooh, service providers, excellent. We've got some points for you later.
And acquirers and PSPs. So there will be a lot of people who know what we are talking about. Others might be at the side. QSA company as well, PSPs.
Ooh, nice mix then. Okay,
yeah,
this is good.
Yeah, definitely.
This is good. Okay, so let us move on then.
So we will be able to share some information here and get your points as well at the end of the session. That will be very interesting for us as well. So yeah, just to give you some kind of background as why is it that we're talking here today. So we keep the focus on PCI DSS. Yeah, there is a lot of conflicting objectives and drivers that are others than those that we talk today, but we will be focused for this session. So our acquirer obligations are primarily on PCI DSS to actually ensure that the environment is safe, as we are requested as an acquirer to do so. And this is one of the other actual objectives we have, or requirement obligations we have from the card schemes. As the acquirer, we are liable and responsible for our kind of ecosystem. That includes merchants, and that comes with the next obligation. We need to engage merchants and to make them PCI compliant. It's nothing that we can do by ourselves, or we have limited approach. We do better in the POS environment, as technology develops, but we need the engagement of the merchant, which is a key part here.
Indeed, but they're also driven by a need to cope with, as Bruce touched on earlier, and as we heard yesterday, the ever-evolving technology, changing business needs and requirements, where consumer payment preferences are changing, technology is constantly evolving, merchants are actually remarkably willing to adopt all these new technologies, especially as we've seen since COVID. And that means we're looking for, well, what is an appropriate way of managing small merchant compliance? What's a good approach for that? And often, because these are emerging technologies that we're talking about, we're having to anticipate how the PCI DSS actually should apply to these merchants.
Yeah, and so there comes another obligation. With all these changes we learned about, there's also a time impact. It's time critical for us to be on the market with new technology. And this is something that we really have to manage as well on the, as a weight on our scale here, and to see how we work with that. So this also comes with the time impact and the risk impact with that. This is a challenge which we will show you as one of our 2 examples that we will now go and discuss. One is about a new technology that's brought on the market, and the other to improve merchant experience and simplify complexity, which is a key concern towards the market. So first example here is the new technology that we introduced. That is soft POS, tap on phone with pin on class MPOC. That's a rather clunky thing, and it doesn't sound very sexy, but it's actually the hot stuff we have got out there in the market, only recently launched. And it is about, in our digital era we have, it's for merchants to have no need for a card reader or terminal. You just have your mobile phone or your tablet as a mobile device, and you add an app to that. And you can accept credit card payments with NFC technology and even can process PIN transactions. So this is easy and secure to do, to process for the merchants. And so it's well accepted in the market for the early adopters. It allows for smaller merchants to be more mobile. Some of these small merchants, they manage their entire business with their mobile phone. And now they also can accept payments with that. So that's the full business in one hand. On the other hand, it might also be interesting for bigger merchants who actually have these checkout queues of customers at peak times, so now for Christmas, so they can actually equip their stuff with these mobile phones and actually manage the queues better. So it's quite something important and something new and challenging in the market there. And here's what approach we took, what challenges we faced, and what approach we took.
Indeed. So what we did essentially is, this is a Nexi developed and managed solution. So we looked at, well, what is the technology? What is the solution? What is its bin-built security and the compliance of all the providers involved and the environments involved? Because what we were wanting to consider was, well, what are the risks that a merchant using this type of tap-on-phone soft POS solution, what risks does the merchant actually present to the card data? We looked, as you can see, at PCI standards, at the PCI SSE's website to try and determine, well, what's the guidance out there about what's applicable in terms of PCI DSS to a merchant using this type of solution, bearing in mind that, as you said, this is very emerging technology. It isn't yet MPOC listed, and as a result, there's no applicable SAQ. There's no MPOC SAQ at this point, even if it was listed. So we were looking at what can we do?
Yeah, so from an acquirer's perspective, this is a mess. There's new technology out in the market. There's no guidance for us as the acquirer, yet we are liable. We don't have listed solutions there. We don't have SAQs out there, but the technology is in the market. Merchants use it. So what can we do with that? So merchants even approach us saying, like, look, we have to show we are PCI compliant, but how do we validate? How do we assess that? What guidance can you give? So we are the trusted partner and advisor for them. So the conclusion was, after going through all these details, we have to make our own decision for that. We have to go forward and just provide something that engages all sizes of merchants. Not only the small ones, but also the bigger ones that can do the self-assessment, like in level 2. If you're a POS merchant, you can do the self-assessment as well. So we needed to consider this. So the objective was to actually help the merchant manage the risk that comes with it and actually attest to that. So we looked into all the details, as Natasja explained, and defined a risk-based preliminary approach, as long as there's no further official guidance on that, and added according guidance on our portal aligned with existing programs in place and the best intentions for us. So as a QSA, they are very familiar with the systems out there, and the risk appeared to be in a way that we could afford that. So as what we achieved then was to actually give a tool at hand to our merchants for guidance on a seamless and uninterrupted experience to validate compliance or assess their solution, have a good customer experience on the portal for self-assessment, as they would expect from us as their trusted partner.
Indeed.
So
we'll look next at
Yeah,
our other example. So again, this one is again, where Nexi and VikingCloud have worked together, trying to create a better merchant experience. And in this case, Nexi's everything to the merchant. They are the acquirer, the payment technology provider, the processor. So they've got full oversight, which has given us a lot of flexibility in terms of streamlining things for the merchant.
Yeah, this is also an example of how the technology develops and how stakeholders take on further responsibilities, making this a simpler experience for merchants, and providing simplicity through technology. We are the end-to-end owner of the value chain as an acquirer and service provider and technology vendor, so we own most of that. For the merchants, it's just to accept and process payments, which is mostly the thing that they think anyway, but they are not too much aware of the risk in the back. But here we really own quite a lot of that, and we actually sell them our proposition as we do, but with a very focus not only on that cashless, safe and reliable transaction. It has also got the impact of this portal that we have as the single point of interaction and having the entire overview. So to simplify there as well, they can access the portal, merchant portal that we provide them, to look into all the aspects of the business with us, see the contract, do changes, get the reporting, know what the sales volumes is. There is quite a lot of intelligence we provide them as well to see, to better understand their business by providing reporting and graphics, so to better understand and grow their business. And as a side thing, we also have an integration to the PCI portal, which is tailored specifically to that proposition, so making it even a simpler experience and just seamless for the merchant.
Indeed. So essentially, the service dashboard, that first point of interaction, is actually a complete one-stop shop.
Yeah.
For a merchant.
Yeah, and we achieved with that, like a consistent, seamless, and integrated merchant experience, customer experience here, and simplifying complexity in our business.
Okay, so that's the kind of thing that VikingCloud and Nexi have done together to try and better serve the merchant, essentially. So this is where we want to get you guys involved. So mobile phones out again, please. We wanted to ask you guys, what can we do? What else can we do to better serve the small merchant business community, the wider payments industry? What other ideas have we got? What do you think, Daniela?
Yes, I think first of all, the audience is really invited to share your ideas, and just feel free. Yeah, so there should be no thought barrier. Just pop out what there comes. And back to your question. So what shall we do? I think we put a lot of effort in PCI DSS compliance also for managing that. And we should consider, where is the risk? So one thing is, if we look into the POS environment, which is also what our session here is today, there is not really a lot of risk, and not a lot the merchant can do wrong about it, given this new technology is encrypted, EMV, P2PE, MPOC, you name it. Then we see that quite interesting development in the industry, that there is more PSPs in the background, service providers, that actually facilitate for more instruments being used as a substitute for the card at the point of sale. So we don't need the card data anymore. If there's no card data at the merchant, there's no harm to that card data possible. And that means, like, for things like mobile phone, we pay with mobile phone. Yeah. We pay with our watches. Yeah, there is no card data at the POS. It's in the background, the service provider that actually marries the incoming watch and mobile phone and initiates the actual credit card transaction in the background. So there's a technology advancement.
Exactly. There's quite a few people commenting on that kind of thing.
The other one interesting thing I would want to mention, like while we think this is all about technology, the latest hot stuff that I really saw in a Whole Food market in New York is you don't need a technical device anymore. It's all about palm reading. And it's not fortune telling, yeah? It's just they read the palm, and this palm is recognizable by the lines of your hand and by your veins structure, and that goes back to the PSP, and they marry it to your card transaction. And that is really stunning experiences and stunning new developments we see out there. And still, no impact and no risk, and pause with that.
Exactly, which is kind of reflects. There's a lot of comments here about simplifying things for merchants, better explaining things to them. I mean, I think somebody commented earlier about moving away from SAQs, and there's somebody else talking here about ensuring they can complete the correct SAQ. So I suppose the question is, are the SAQs the right thing for the small merchant? Is there a way of simplifying things so that they understand what they're trying to do, understand what the risks are, and buy into it more? Is that maybe where we need to go?
I think that's an interesting question, because we're talking about the merchant engagement in the first place. If you present like the SAQs to a merchant, they don't see where their stake is. They just want to use their card acceptance terminal or whatever means they have for that, like a commodity. They don't want to worry about any technical stuff. I drive my car, I don't worry about how this actually is enabled and what technology is in it. I just want to drive it, and this is a similar thing for merchants.
Yeah.
And with this,
payment's just the commodity, isn't it?
Yeah. With these rather clunky SAQs, I don't think we get them on the hook. But if we take it from a broader context, there might be a different view to that. If you step into the merchant's shoes, their concern is about their business. If there was risk about their business, which we could kind of combine with PCI to give them like further good opportunities to save, for example, their digital appearance. Most POS merchants these days have kind of digital or online presence as well. They are on social media. They have a cyber risk as well. Like if we could offer something where they get all that rich support, they might be more open and engaged in that. But that would mean for us to have a slight broader view on what is in it for the merchant, what might be attractive for him.
Exactly. I mean, there's an interesting one there talking about the cost of compliance and the technical know-how of the SMEs in terms of the standards. It's that the standard is one thing, but what does it really mean to the SME? How does it really relate to their wider business? What should they be? Or how should we be supporting them to understand? And actually, there was somebody else commenting about service providers somewhere, which again, it's that most of them are reliant on a service provider of some kind, but they struggle with the conversation in terms of what it is they're asking their service providers to do for them.
The thing is with the service providers, as well as with e-commerce, I think there is where the risk is, and I think nobody will doubt here. So merchants struggle to understand where the risk lies, so version 4 of PCI DSS made it more clear where to have a look at. So it's on us to actually explain why this is relevant, because they are moaning a lot about these new requirements and not talking about the future dated ones. So that will be fun. They now have to undergo the ASV scanning, and they are not happy about it, and they don't understand. So it's a lot of explanation we have to do to accept their responsibilities. On the other hand, maybe even worse is their third parties in the background who actually don't see their stake in our ecosystem here, who do not understand where the risk is and why they should be PCI compliant. And then it's our merchant discussing this with their service provider, and how can we actually better help them to overcome that challenge. It's just one merchant to one service provider who doesn't accept. There is further merchants, but how can we get a leverage and get these service providers on board? I think there was like quite a lot of development in the POS environment over the years. PCI is more secure, no doubt. There is more and more stakeholders that come on the boat and take their responsibility, but there is still way to go.
Definitely. Definitely, some really good ideas here. I'm liking some of those colours. Blimey, that's a long one. But I get the point.
Yeah, with the misleading merchants to get unfair competitive advantage.
I'm loving this. We definitely need to continue this in a bar somewhere later on.
Yeah,
We are running out of time, though, so let's
yeah, but
just...
I think it's important. It becomes clear. Yeah, we really have to engage merchants. We really have to educate merchants. We have to educate other stakeholders in the industry. And last but not least, I think it's really valuable to say that going above and beyond payments will help us. Yeah, if we understand the risk for merchants that is on a broader scope, and if we help them to buy in, that will be for the benefit of us all to see that. And it might as well have for us to build a closer relationship to merchants and also to have new business opportunities.
Indeed. So these were our takeaways, obviously, we thought about before you guys contributed your thoughts. But, yeah, fire away, Daniela.
Yeah, so is there a right way to keep up? Natasja, that's
yes, there's one single way to do it. No, not at all. One thing we were talking about was that actually, are we all, and obviously there's a nice mix of different kinds of representation here, are we all on the same page in terms of what it is we're actually trying to achieve? Because obviously there's those that set the rules, there's those like Nexi that enforce the rules, people helping the merchants to implement those standards, the rules, but the merchants essentially got no influence on what it is expected of them.
Yeah, so there is also the risk-based approach that we can have a look at here. So it is, as we said, focus on where the risk lies, focus our resources on that to actually leverage and get a better outcome. And just briefly go to the merchant dependencies on their TPSPs. This is there, so to go into better education, as we said before, and going above and beyond payments. So actually have a proposition that is interesting for the merchant and gives them a wider kind of benefit to buy in our security initiatives.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where the objective-based type of approach to PCI DSS. Obviously, we've got that in the DSS for the larger enterprises, but here I'm talking about objective-based approaches for the smaller merchants to help them understand why we're asking them about all these technical specific requirements. If we can get them to understand where the risks are and why there are risks that ultimately they need to manage. Payments isn't a commodity in all cases, so helping them to recognize why they need to do what they need to do and what the value is, not only to protect the payment card data, but also the wider business benefits. As you said, they're dependent on their social media and all their mobile devices. There's a lot more risks that if they really understood what we were asking them to do and why, they'd actually benefit from.
Yes.
And hopefully also, if they're having that better understanding, or they have that better understanding, maybe it'll help them in the discussion with the third-party service providers you were talking about, the ones where they don't actually realize at the moment that there is a potential impact from those third-party service providers on account data. If they could explain and have a conversation about why there's a risk, not necessarily what they want them to do, but what they're trying to achieve, maybe that would help the merchants in those conversations because they really struggle to discuss with the service providers.
As we can see within our payment industry, as well as generally in data security, there is not one silver bullet we have to actually achieve any goal here. So, but the thing is, we see a lot of technology, stunning technology development out there. We are part of that. We drive that. We trigger that. We are aware of that. So there is this technology advancement. But aligned with that, we also see the different customer preferences from the merchant's point of view, just managing their business with a mobile phone, as well as you and me to actually pay with mobile phones, with watches, or with our palm. Yeah, that's also quite stunning to see. Aligned with that, we also see there's more and more standards. It's not the PCI standards that come with it. There's other compliance and regulatory things that we have to consider. There's just such a lot of things to think about, but there's also this bit of, there's new opportunities for us, new business opportunities. We just have to go for it. And I think that was the stunning thing about the futurist discussion we saw earlier today. There is so much to happen. We just have to go for it. Really stunning new things to come for us. Next generation payments might be a game and will be a game changer. I'm pretty sure. So stay tuned.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.